And we're back, humanoids, for a segment I like to call Making the Most of Your Rotisserie Chicken, where I'll be teaching you how to make chicken broth ice cubes. So cute and so easy to use. And many thank yous to an old friend of mine, Andrew, for this adorable shirt, although admittedly, I don't read enough. So after a very thorough hand and nail washing, first thing we're going to do is separate the skin from the chicken. I like to use the skin to bake in the oven, and I use the dried chicken skin to garnish certain things like soups and stuff. But I like to start where the head of the chicken would be. Use light pressure to get between the skin and the meat. Get on the edges. Some areas are going to be harder than others to take the skin off. This isn't a huge important step. You could definitely keep the skin on if you're just going to make broth. But because I like to use the skin for other things, I like to take the skin off carefully. I love using Instacart during this time so I don't have to go into any stores. You can order from Costco without a Costco membership if you go through Instacart. I get a rotisserie chicken and I ask them to get me the biggest one they can find. Here we have one nice large piece of chicken skin. What I would do is just hang this in the oven and bake it at 350 for like maybe 10 minutes and just keep checking it until it's crispy. And then you just carefully take it out of the oven. But we've got chicken skin, more chicken skin, and since we're going to be making broth ice cubes, you can definitely use the skin in the broth because it's so fatty. Now that we've got the skin off, I am going to separate the chicken breasts, but I want to be able to cube it or pull it by hand. So in order to do that, I want to keep it all in one piece. If you just use your finger and apply pressure in the middle, you'll feel the center bone, and you can just follow that center bone down. I'm going right underneath the meaty part of the chicken, and I'm gently going around the edge, and voila, one big juicy chicken breast. We have the top and then the inside. This top, you can cube it now, slices of it, it'll stay nice and pretty. Do the same thing here. This is the bone I was talking about that's in the middle. Apply pressure next to the bone, and then I like to just kind of dig it out around the edges. The wishbone is right here, and oftentimes it'll break while you're trying to pull the chicken apart, so work around that bone. Come over here to the front and just work my way underneath all of that meaty part, trying to keep it in one piece as much as I can. Et voila! So I have two bowls here, and I'm going to separate the white meat from the dark meat. I like giving the chicken a moment to cool down because it's hot. So if you try to do this right when you get the chicken, you're probably gonna burn your hand. Now that I have most of the breast removed, I'm gonna move on to the legs. What I usually do with the legs, grab it, break it off of the actual chicken. It's more difficult to keep this all in one piece, but you can if you want to. I'm just gonna use my thumb and go underneath that piece of meat. All these other pieces, I'm just gonna gently take apart. See this big thing of skin? This can definitely go in the broth. So I just keep pulling, pulling and pulling, and here's the actual drumstick. So all this meat, what I'll do with it is mince it up. So I don't really care having it be in whole pieces, but sometimes if you know you're just gonna wanna do sliced, and you want those slices to be pretty, you can definitely try harder to pull it all in one piece. Sometimes when you pull the meat, there'll be one side that has some gristle. You can just use your nail and just separate the gristle before you put it aside. So after I'm pretty sure most of the meat is off, still give it a once over and look for any crevices that you might have missed since it's all kind of the same color. And then all of the bones, you're just gonna set back in the actual container. Moving on to the other one, I'm gonna break this guy off. I'm gonna try to keep this in one section, and the rest of it, I don't have to take it off carefully. I can just rip it apart. So the rest of it, I'm just keeping it going, piecing it all off. Some areas will come off all in one piece more easily, so take advantage of that. So this is all the dark meat from that section of the chicken, which I'm gonna put in my dark meat bowl. Moving on to the wings, I'm gonna do the same thing as before and just break it off. This part of the chicken isn't gonna have that much meat, but I still like to use as much of the chicken as I can. So I'm gonna separate all this too. This part is like smaller sections, so it's just gonna yield smaller pieces of chicken. Moving on to the other side. All the skin from this section I'm just gonna put back in my container. So in the inner part of the chicken, there's a lot of meat hiding. Make sure to dig through all of that. Here's a little drumstick. Get all this meat out. This is the bottom of the chicken. This whole area is a lot of skin. Save all that for the broth. I'm taking all the skin off because I want to make sure to not miss any of the meat hiding underneath it. And I'm just going to start gently digging my finger through, making sure to take out any bones and just find all of these little hidden pieces of meat. Near the butt of the chicken, in the midsection of the bottom, you'll find these little gems. If you've watched Amelie, they talk about the little oysters of the chicken. Very soft and juicy little bites. Now I'm just inspecting the chicken, making sure I'm not leaving any little pieces of meat on here. All you want left really is bones and skin. You can use all of the meat for something, but it's the bones and the skin you won't have that much use for, so we can use it for our chicken broth cubes. Now I'm just rifling through all this chicken, and this is the meat that's come off of the other parts. I'm gonna put all that in the dark meat bowl. But in this container, when it arrives, there's a lot of chicken fat at the bottom. So if you've put it in the fridge like I did here, you'll see all of this gelatinous jiggle. That's all chicken fat. We want that to be in the broth. I'm gonna put all of my meat back in this container, and we're gonna go make some broth.
And here we go, folks. Add the chicken remains to a large pot filled 3 inches from the top and use a spoonful of the hot water to melt the fat left in the container. I added some smashed garlic and a whole cubed onion to begin with, but this is where it gets fun. You can customize it literally any way you like. I love to make it Latin-inspired with spices like cilantro, oregano, and cumin, or Asian spices like ginger and lemongrass. I spice the one in this video with simple lemon pepper and salt so that I can virtually use it for anything. Boil it covered for 45 minutes to 1 hour, stirring and pressing it down every 20 minutes. It should be about 3 to 4 cups after using a fine mesh strainer to separate the broth. Don't forget to taste test it. Now let's make the most of that meat. Starting with white, hand shred the chicken breast. This size is nice in any salad. If you're going to slice it, be careful because it is a lean cut and can fall apart pretty easily, so it's helpful if your knife is very frickin' sharp. Slice it thicker or thinner depending on what you'll serve it with. Then gently hand pull longer strips, which are more elegant than the shorter size and are more beautiful and sexy in soups. You can make medium to large size cubes from thicker sections of the breast by first filleting it, slicing it lengthwise, and finally cutting it perpendiculars. I separate them by size depending on what I'll use them for, like an American chicken salad sandwich or a larger piece like chicken noodle soup. And here's the pretty white meat. For the dark meat, select which larger pieces you want to slice and clean them of any excess fat or gristle. I really like sliced dark meat on top of a soup like ramen because it's so tender. It's extra flavorful also because of the fat content and contains myoglobin, which is a protein that carries oxygen to the muscles and helps them work much better. If you ever wondered why dark meat actually does taste better than white meat and is easier to cook, now you know. I like to mince the rest because I know I'll be using it to make tacos in the next video, but I find it works really well in a bolognese. Use it to make a yummy meat pasta sauce. I chop it up, then mince it up, and just keep working at it until it's the size I want, which in this case is pretty minced. The chicken only lasts in the fridge for 5 days, y'all, so you can definitely freeze it, but you need to eat it within 4 to 5 days. And look at that cute little heart. So after a thorough strain and the broth is at a warm to cool temperature, carefully pour it into the trays. Slowly go one by one by one by one, or do the magical waterfall. Once frozen, use some water that's very hot on the backs of the trays to make the cubes easier to pop out. And I recommend using a large bowl to catch all of them because they are slippery little suckers. And you don't want them like falling on a table and then just like sliding away and hitting the ground because trust me, it's happened to me. And voila, pretty little gems. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Get in my tummy. Aw, so cute. And we're back. In my cozy, comfy couch corner, back with our new chicken broth ice cube. Ain't it just cute? These things are so versatile. They work wonderful in soups as a base. I like them in rice. I usually add more water because of the fat content. Most recently, my favorite thing to do with them is make my own little cup of broth. I just put 2 cubes in really, really hot water with salt, pepper, lemon juice, and cayenne. It makes my own little cozy, comfy couch corner soup. Yum. Be inventive with your broth cubes. Become a mad scientist with your broth cubes. If you have a friend or family member that you know needs to learn how to make the most of their rotisserie chicken, share this video with them. Stay tuned for the next few videos where I use all of the meat I pulled off the chicken to make a few different things. Cheers to you and your new broth cube adventure. Happy cooking, good looking. I hope you have fun and enjoy.